Well, I think this may be all that we get today, so we can go ahead and get started. I know a few people are not able to make it from the salt stack side. Janae is unable to make it today unexpectedly, and Tom had some conflicts come up as well. But we can go ahead and get started. It may be short. That's okay. So welcome everybody to our open hour. This is our weekly meeting. I have been considering that as we move into a new year that we look at this meeting and just make sure that it's working for everybody. This time works, and we're getting enough participation. If we need to look at that in a different light, now is probably a good time to just review that. So if anybody has suggestions there, please feel free to say this is working or this isn't. Today, I just have a couple of general updates, and we'll go over the point release a little bit. There is a docs working group today in the afternoon, the US afternoon, and we'll go ahead and list the SEPs, although I don't have a lot of information on any one SEP unless people have questions or want to go over something. And we'll jump into Q&A after that. So some general updates. The point release is set for the 18th, so next week. That means that code freeze will lift. It's a little bit lifted now. We're sort of coming out of freezing slowly as we do the point release, and then we'll completely come out of it as we release and go back to things as usual and merging as usual. We are going to do a retrospective next week. This has the form link in it. I'll make sure that that is in YouTube as well as in the meeting notes and on the community wiki, and I will probably put it in the announcements again, just to make sure that people have that. I actually haven't looked to see if I've gotten any responses to that. I haven't had time, so I'll go check that out today. Hopefully I've heard from some people. It'd be great. As we transition to VMware, and some things will change. So meeting IDs will change. That isn't usually a problem. Most of us click on the meeting ID and hardly look at the number anyway, so I don't know that that's too big of a problem. Although with some of the working groups, we have those numbers published in documentation. I know that the docs working group has a specific ID that they use over and over again, so they have that published. We'll just want to make sure that those are changed as we move forward, and we'll set those dates and make sure that we're working with each captain to make sure that documentation is updated and that everybody has the new numbers and that it's updated on the calendars. The calendar will move to an Office 365 calendar, although it should still be public. If I can keep that as a Google Calendar, I may, since it's public, but I believe it has to be moved. But I don't have a date on that just yet. Thinking in December, and we'll make sure that that's very public so that people have that availability to make the changes that they need as well. But just general updates. Any questions? Yeah. The Magnesium point release. So the project board is Magnesium. It just has a different label and a milestone. We're looking into these and quickly getting this merged, and we'll tag soon, and that will be all in the next sort of 24 to 48 hours. There are some things that we're still working on that we wanted to get into the point release but aren't done yet, bigger than we thought they would be, or just difficult to get tests written for in a small amount of time. But I'll be looking at those with the team, and we'll be communicating on each one of them, and hopefully we'll just get those fixed and in and be releasing next week. Any questions about the point release? Nope. Cool. There is a docs working group today that is in the afternoon. They do usually live stream that. And I saw the agenda, although I don't know that it's specific to any one thing, except for sort of general updating docs and having some initiatives that they have there that are fairly large. So it's a fun group. They usually have a really good time. If you're able to join us, please do. Here is a list of all our current SEPs. I believe this has everything on it. Still working through a lot of these and looking at the process for this to make sure that it's a little bit more robust. I think that we started out really great, and maybe we just need a few things to make it more visible. We have it in the channel, It has its own channel in Slack. I'm thinking that it probably needs an assignment. So an assignee to each one, and that could even be the person who opened it or someone who's championing it with them. And maybe even some labels, like where it is in the process, or milestones, something like that. Since we have that availability, I was looking at where that would fit exactly, and I wanted to work with Janae, but she's been pretty busy as she's transitioned from SaltConf and still doing some of that work. We haven't had time to meet about it just yet, so we'll still continue to look at that. These are all still fairly important, but we haven't lost sight of it. Still want to do all of them.
For what it's worth, there are labels that exist already in the repository. And that, at least in the past, that's how we were tracking things.
I thought so too. I just wasn't sure if...
I think it's more just the lack of somebody to champion / SEP herd
Right.
and just get them moved along, and either, it's really just administrivia, I think.
Yeah, just some administration.
There's a lot of tiny things typically that that we have now discovered go into this process, where it's like, okay, there've been there's a lot of feedback, so we need to aggregate that and collect it in one place. Here's the things for, here's the things against, because the discussion occasionally can get into the weeds, and so we just need to people, like, it's really not, there's no hard and fast necessity that it's anybody special, but somebody needs to be able to aggregate all that information, sum it up, and say, okay, here's everything for, here's everything against. We've addressed all these points of concern. Either they're valid and we change them, or we don't really agree with them, or whatever it is. But it's just a whole bunch of administrivia there that needs to happen for these steps, to make sure that either they have made it into the form that they need to be accepted, or that we've hashed out and discussed as much as possible, and we just can't either yet come to a good conclusion, or it's something that we just simply don't agree should be in SALT generally, and we need to go ahead and reject it at that point. But it's really just that process. We need to be able to get all of those fiddly bits, and most people are busy with all kinds of things. So I think that's the thing is, if you have any desire to do that, I think that would be awesome. That would be very welcome to say, yeah, I'll go ahead and take this on.
Yeah, exactly. I guess where I was going with that is that we have some labels for when things start to wrap up, but I don't know that we have quite what we need when we're in that stage of like, okay, well, the conversation kind of went in this direction, and now we almost have two separate things, or maybe even three, or whatever it is. And those kind of need some labels, like where we are in that like execution process of the SEP, or a milestone or something, like it's in discussion, or we're looking for review or something like that. And I'm not sure what those are exactly, because each one is so different. I'm not sure how to make them similar enough to give it a label or a milestone. That's where I'm kind of stuck in that process of, well, I don't know if we've had enough to say that we know what the process is exactly for all of them, sort of higher level. But I'm open to what other people think that have had more experience with this, or have sat on some other proposal boards, I guess, and been through some of these on what they see would be a better sort of nitty gritty. And when we get into that execution of like, well, let's discuss and let's figure out what's next in this. I think there's a lot of ways that we could improve it to make it more visible of where any one particular SEP is in its process and what we're looking for to move it forward. And I don't know that any one of those things is actually the better way. I think we just need to pick one and go with it. I think right now we're thinking that it would be more straightforward, and some aren't. And so we just need a little bit more process in that execution of discussion. Does that sound kind of similar to what you were thinking, Wayne?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
I don't know if we're done with this discussion, but if we are, there was a comment from IRC that I can share about the versioning.
Sure.
MTech from IRC asks, could someone please reconsider the naming scheme? Dropping the .0 from .0 releases is a pain in the butt to deal with.
I saw that in IRC, and I think we have a reason that we do that. As we went to a non-date based release naming convention after the code name of the release, and we went to just a number base, and we didn't have a point, that there were some issues there.
There aren't any issues relative to having like a .0 to it. I know the big, huge reason that we changed to just 3000 generally is that kept the order correct. The other option would have been using epics, which does not is not reliable and consistent across packaging tools that use epics, whereas 3000 was. I don't know if there is any other real benefit to just having that. I think at this point, everybody's probably aware that we have drastically changed our versioning schema, and that we are, now clearly doing this other different thing. So it probably wouldn't hurt to reintroduce the .0, but that's one person's take on it. And there may be other opinions and thoughts.
Yeah, I thought it was fairly specific to packaging, and I thought that it had some changes as we go through release. But Frude, I don't know if you have a better explanation, or Gareth or Megan. I just simply don't remember.
I was just going to ask for like a clarification question. So the suggestion and the want is so for example, like when we have 3003 is the release, it would be 3003.0.
Yes, that is the request.
Okay.
And in some places, I think it is, but not everywhere. Do I have that right? Pedro or Frude, can you guys confirm? Curl?
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen us use 3000 whatever .0 before.
Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I'm
No,
just remembering that we've had this conversation. That can be completely possible.
We do use 3000.0 on the Bootstrap script so that we can pin to minor versions. That's it. That doesn't affect or change the salt version. It's just a way of telling the Bootstrap script how it should pin, namely to the minor versions of 3000, 3001, etc.
It's more like a placeholder.
Yeah, a workaround for not having the .0.
What was the particular issue the person in IRC is having, that not having a .0 at the end is causing the issues?
I will ask that.
Yeah, I guess maybe what I'm remembering is Bootstrap, and maybe that's his as well. Yeah, gotcha.
Maybe a little bit later before the response, because that's the nature of IRC versus the Zoom chat. But I'm expecting it's a similar sort of reason, like what Pedro just mentioned with the Bootstrap script. Like, we just add that implicit dot to work around not having the explicit dot. And that's probably it, because I know oftentimes tools are more or less reliable about what sort of things they do, and having a like optional dot in the version number can probably be an issue for different different utilities. So I suspect it's something to that effect.
Yeah, I know this has come up in the periphery, and I think it's probably something we need to really dive into and understand where the pain points are exactly, so that we can address those. Either with changes, actual changes of doing something there, or explanation. I'm not sure if that's actually, I don't know that either one of those is actually correct, but possible.
Yeah. So far, no response yet in IRC, but if we do get one, I will bring that up in here. But
Yeah, I think it's good to bring it up, and I know that MTech has also mentioned a few things, and so I'd love to dig into some specifics, because I do want to understand exactly where this is as a pain point, so that we can address it.
yeah, Lord Sir chimed in and said it is rather inconsistent to not write the .0.
Yeah, and if it inconsistency versus a pain point in pinning versions and the workaround with Bootstrap are fairly different. So is there anything else?
Yeah, nothing reported yet, but
Okay.
keep us posted.
Yeah. Anybody else here, or see
I'm just curious, like if the person in question can like kind of, again, like, I mean, Wayne is the go-between here, but can we like kind of go into a little more detail there as like what the inconsistency is, like us not using the .0? Is it like the inconsistency of like using it for the Bootstrap script but not using it for versions and packages, or is it that we do like a .1, .2, and we don't do a .0? Like, what is the, I guess, like to Sage's point, like what is the root of the issue of not having the .0? Is it just aesthetics, or is there some technical issue here?
People just find it non-standard.
Yeah, it is. I was gonna say, I think we're the only project that I've ever seen that does it this way. Either there's the at least consistently this way. I guess I should say. But generally, I'm aware of like 3 basic versioning schemes in use today that are actual consistent schemes. There's obviously semantic versioning, calver, and calendar versioning, which is what we used to use, and then the single number version, where it would just be 3000, 3000.1, 3000.2, 3000.3, and there are no minor patch versions. But yeah, so switching between the two just seems mildly strange. But again, I've never had any.
Oh, I don't think there's any technical issues though.
No,
Yeah.
there isn't. And in fact, we are PEP 440 compliant, which defines how Python projects should define their versions.
Yes.
So that actually sounds like maybe we need some more visible communication about that. I'm not sure if that's docs or blog post or wiki. I don't know what that is, but that's kind of what I'm thinking at first thought. And then we could go from there. Almost like a forum. It kind of feels like we need a forum on this. I'm not sure where to hold that, because I'd like to be able to capture it synchronously and asynchronously, as well as for historical reasons. So I'm not sure where we would do that at this moment in time, but I would cobble something together so that we could have that in some fashion and manually put it together somewhere.
I don't recall. Did we have a SEP about the version changes?
Seems like we did. Those are a little bit buried. So it seems like after we've made a decision, we also need like some sort of blog post or more visual documentation than just in the docs. Does that make sense?
We didn't have any anything just related to the version number itself. We did have some discussion as we changed the entire versioning schema, but there wasn't any like more in-depth, hey, should we add the .0 or not? And I think at the time in the discussion, it was pretty much just Tom's fiat. And he said, we're just going to go 3000 and there we go.
That's what I recall as well. I mean, so there you have it.
Yes.
Sure. It's hard to capture that sort of historically and explain because it was sort of stated. I'm wondering how we do that now. I'm not sure.
Yeah. And, you know, back to, I guess, both the request and the point that I made earlier. I don't know if now there's any technical or moral reason to maintain the lack of a .0. You know, we're clearly doing something different. We're not, you know, it is a huge break from the calendar versioning. And so if we decide that it's worthwhile to go ahead and add a .0, I don't think there's any.
I mean, my take on it is we're making things more confusing by changing yet again, and that we should just stick to what we're doing.
I think that's fine. I was thinking more about transitioning that, like the things that were said in the SEP that I think was large and some of the things that came out of it into some sort of communication that could also be historically referred to. And I'm not sure what that is. That doesn't seem like docs is quite the right answer. And to me that it sounds like a forum, but I don't have that today. So I'm coming up blank.
I have no problem with putting something in the docs that states here's the versioning that we use. I don't think we need to explain why. Seems
that's fine. If it was in a SEP, I guess I was just thinking we refer to that so that it's consistent. No, or
I don't know that we have anything in the docs today.
today, I think we actually still have some confusing things where we refer to, we just haven't done some general cleanup because there's still some things in contributing that I think say, you know, develop branch instead of master. And we talk a little bit about versions throughout, but it's not, it doesn't say anything about the change or what we do today. So it's a little bit confusing. I don't think that that would be difficult to update. I think it's what product managers typically refer to as tech debt that I think is an unfair term, but happens. Yeah, I'll take a little bit of action on that and just look through the docs, see if I can grep it, and if there's some confusing information that we could at least get into a ticket to update what is there today. And if people have other suggestions, feel free to open an issue. Are there other questions or discussion points people wanted to bring up today? I think I actually have one. We've talked a little bit about working groups. The working groups going forward, we would like to review them on what we used to call a term basis, which was either a release cycle or 2 release cycles. And I'd like to firm that up, what a term means for the working groups, what a captain's role is and time frame. And as we start looking at the security working group as a new working group and a Kubernetes working group, I would like to start that one as well, that we do sort of a project charter. And a project charter is like a project plan, except for that it's much, much shorter. It is intended to be 1 page, maybe 2, and gives you a really brief synopsis of what the group does and the project is doing, their goals, their timeframes, who's involved, and where they keep information. And that's kind of all that's needed. And then to keep that in the community repository so that it's available and very accessible to everyone. I think that that would help some of those working groups as well to gain some visibility where they may not have it, and they're trying to also garner some support and community involvement that would give, you know, enough information asynchronously to people to know if they would even be interested in joining. And then how to actually do that. It's so simple that we get asked that a lot. So I think that we just need to be explicit, and this is the work group and this is how you join. And Gareth, I know that you brought up that Kubernetes working group. Very likely that will involve you somehow. Do you know of anybody else that may be interested?
Yeah, there's a few people, both present and past community members that I think would be interested.
Awesome.
In us having more of a Kubernetes focus.
Yeah. Next week, I have a meeting with some of the VMware open source community managers, and I was actually going to understand if they had something that was similar that we could collaborate with, since Kubernetes is now going to be broader in scope for us with where we're going. I thought that we may be able to also collaborate there. So I'll ask, see if there's something. It's kind of exciting to think about that. I think that group would be really, really cool, as well as the security working group. Those are really exciting. And I'm just really looking forward to those. I think that's going to be, it's going to be cool. Any other questions, comments, concerns? It does look like Emron said that there is a situation where a lack of a .0 is a pain for formulas. in the image builder. That's actually something we should probably look into.
I just posted that link in the chat here too. But basically it's what we discussed is you have to check to see if there is that .0 or if there's a lack of .0, I guess, technically.
And why is that?
It says handle version number when installing a .0 release with Git where .0 is not present in the version number in PyPI. So I guess when installing with Git, the .0.
We don't tag with the .0.
We do tag with like a .1 when we do have a point release. Is that so when you're
Right. So I just don't understand. I'm just trying to understand what this is about.
It might actually be due to installing like via Bootstrap from Git versus.
So is Bootstrap requiring a .0?
That was something Pedro said, that we do have support in the Bootstrap script for .0 so that we can pin to a specific version.
So we do not require the .0, in particular for Git installations. We only use the .0 if someone is trying to pin the repo, like Debian or CentOS repos that we provide to the minor releases. That's the only time where we use the .0, is to tell the Salt Bootstrap script that we want to pin to minor versions.
When you say pin, you're talking about like with the package manager?
Yes. So you say that I want all versions of 3002.
Why do we have to?
I want 3002, 3002.1, I want 3002.2, but
Right.
I do not want 3003.
Right. Why do we have to have the .0 there?
That's the only way we can make a distinction if you want to install 3002 or if you want to pin to 3002. Basically a limitation.
But
of
if
the
we,
Bootstrap script and the
what
way
I don't
it's
understand
today.
is if we had a .0, then that wouldn't work.
What wouldn't work?
That distinction would no longer be a distinction.
No, because the distinction would be done by the version itself.
Yeah, I'm still not understanding.
If I'm understanding it right, if you want to install exactly 3001 at the moment and to pin it to 3001, you say 3001.0. If you say I want 3001 and possibly 3001.1 when it comes out, 3001.2 when it comes out, you say 3000. Does that make sense? So 3001.0 says, exactly that version, not the whole 3001 release series with any point releases.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, I think that's the behavior.
Yeah. Okay, I can see how that's an issue.
So does this go back to the discussion we had a few months ago with packaging and then the repos and pinning? Or is this specific to Git?
I think
This is unrelated to Git.
Managers generally work. Like if we had a .0, right, on our releases instead of the way we do it today,
Right.
then you could just tell the package manager, hey, pin to everything 3001, not include the .0, and it'll know the right thing to do. But because we don't have a 0, that makes that part confusing for the package managers.
Right.
So we could,
So we're actually saying to install a .0 when there isn't one.
right. So I think one of two things going forward is we can explain where we are today. And then if a change is warranted there, then we can make a change later at least. So is that a big enough issue that we probably need a change with that for package managers, or?
I mean, it would simplify things for everybody.
But does it have some other downstream effects though for that change? Because like you were saying, it'd probably be confusing now to make that change without some really explicit reason. So is that a SEP or an issue, something else?
I think it would just be confusing changing, going from not having the .0 to having the .0 and then referring to it just as like, say, like 3003, knowing that it's 3003.0.
Right, but it wouldn't be impossible to add .0 tags and .0 packages to make things consistent.
Right. Yeah, there's no, other than, I mean, there's no technical
like
challenges.
And I don't
this.
know.
It's just a understanding challenge.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear Bryce's take on this, but it seems like we could retroactively go in and fix the 3 versions that we have already done this on.
Yeah.
I think that we would need some heavy communication on this, especially to the to people that are using the packages and package managers and other people downstream that are packaging for us too as well. So I think there's a large communication piece there.
Yeah,
Change.
Yeah, it's probably not worth even trying to go in and retroactively fix it. Probably better to just be like, look, we went down this path thinking that it was a good path. Turns out it's not as good of a path as we thought. Like, here's why. Here's the problem we're trying to fix. And from now on, we're going to do it this way.
Okay, but where do we put that information? Just in a PR and a change log, or?
No, I mean, we definitely need to communicate it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I feel like it's not really worthy of a SEP.
I don't know that it's worthy of a SEP either, but I want to communicate, and I'm not sure what that is exactly right now, but I think that's probably a heavy piece of it. So I want to think about that just a little bit. I'm going to take some action on that as I work with Janae as she's transitioning over as the community manager to do that. Right now, I'm kind of thinking blog post, but I'm open to ideas and would love to hear from people on this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it's not a SEP, whether or not it's a SEP, we should also mention it in a blog post. We should also bring it up in the community Slack and the develop channels.
What are other people's takes on it being a SEP or not a SEP?
I guess the question to ask with it being a SEP or not being a SEP is, do we want to open it up for people to argue against having the .0?
Well, yeah, I feel like that's okay.
I think opening up a SEP.
I feel like people were already arguing against not having the .0 when we did this the first time. And so a SEP would just be like,
We heard you, and we agree.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good point. So I actually would say that I'm for a SEP because I think that it would be clean, and I think that it would actually be, it would move through the process in a way that would would be, as the process is today, that we opened it up. I think most people are going to agree with it. It's going to go through a final phase fairly quickly and garner approval. So I actually think that it's a good idea. And then we should also do some blog posts and other communication in the channels as well.
Yeah, I'm all right with that.
Okay.
I will add
Yeah,
that
no,
there's
I
going to
mean-
be some code we're going to need to update. It's not just as simple as changing the tag.
And I wasn't suggesting that we try and sneak something in to the community. I'm just saying like that it seems like the consensus was to keep the .0,
Right.
and we're kind of leaning towards keeping the dot or putting the .0 back in.
Right.
My point was just like, do we want to open it up for that counter argument for anyone that's adamant about?
Well,
like,
I
no,
mean,
there
the
shouldn't be a
counter
.0.
argument, there might be a counter argument we haven't thought of.
That's fair.
The big counter argument for not having a .0 was Tom.
I
He's
think
the
that
one
was the
who
only
deter-
counter argument.
Yes, but he walks softly and carries a big stick.
Exactly.
So,
But at the time when that decision was made, we had no reason not to just go with it. And so we went with it. But now we have a reason.
There were several arguments, believe me, that occurred, but Tom won.
Right. Yeah, I recall. But no technical reason, right? Now we have a technical, an articulable technical reason.
Well, I would say it's all in software. You can do whatever you want. So technically, that might come back on us.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue that. I think that we have a real reason to keep the 0.0 that is articulable is an interesting word. I think we can articulate it. I think that's the way to use that. And we can also say that this came from the community that's actually using this. They have a real reason for it. Here it is. Let's document it. Let's put it through that SEP process, because I think that is the right way to go. And maybe there's something we haven't thought of that's not just that one card counter argument. I'd be interested to hear it. Just can't think of it today. Okay, I will, I'll look into that. Emran, I saw that you joined. Thank you for joining and thank you for your comments. I may ask you and Mark Smith to help me with that SEP, possibly. I like it that it says STEP when I mean SEP, S-E-P. Thank you, closed captioning. Doing your best.
Hey, it actually
It's actually
corrected it.
Seth.
After you said SEP, then the next time it went back and rewrote SEP to SEP.
S-E-P. Man.
You need to start using the NATO phonetic alphabet.
That's right.
If only you could
Sierra
speak it with
Echo.
an American accent from Southern California, because that's probably where it's written.
Oh, touche, my Irish friend.
I just think of that YouTube video of the two Scottish guys stuck in the lift with the American English voice activation.
That one was pretty great.
11. Oh, got it. Look at that. I get off the elevator.
Let's try this. Liter. No, liter.
Hey, it spelt it wrong. That should be L-I-T-R-E.
Well, it won't,
Depends on
it
what
won't do
country
swear
you're in.
words, but it will do arse. Every time.
I couldn't be
Funny.
arsed how they spell words.
Well, the closed caption is a fun tool.
How do you enable that?
So this is part of, if you use Google Slides with Chrome, it comes with it when you present to make it accessible. There's some other features with some other products that as we move over to VMware and we start to use PowerPoint, that there's some plugins that are free that will come with this. Zoom has some things, but most of them are pay for, but VMware does offer them. So I'm hoping to use those as we go forward. Make things a little bit more.
It doesn't work unless you're presenting a slide deck.
That's correct. So if I move over to here, it won't do anything here. I have to be on this presentation slide in presentation mode, and I have to use the Chrome browser for it to work.
Interesting.
Yeah, but I'll take it, right? I happen to be a Firefox fan myself, so I had to make some changes, but I'm willing to do that.
Yeah,
Does
Chrome's
this
really
mean we
gone
have to use
downhill.
Does this mean we have to all start using Edge even on Linux?
Oh, Linux. I hope not.
Linux.
My new operating system.
Linux. It's actually a, like you're saying, Nox.
Linux.
The type of silverware.
What if you say Linux?
Oh, that's not right either.
If you say Unix.
Unix.
I don't know how you pronounce
Oh.
it. We need some Unix programmers.
That's not what I said.
All right, Sage wins the day.
Company nurse, we said never mind.
Closed captioning should have context. Like we are talking in a context of programming so that it could make better decisions.
I don't know. I think these ones are pretty great.
They make for a very interesting open hour.
So Solaris.
There we go.
Got that one, bang on.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Wow.
They couldn't get that one though.
Anti-disestablishmentarianism.
It didn't even write
We
any.
just broke it.
It got DWASs though.
It did.
Oh.
You even spelled it right.
And I guess it's just English, right?
This one is.
But I
I
was just
have it
thinking
set to. You can change the language, but it defaults to English. Yes.
Do when Pedro
Anticonstitucional.
speaks in Portuguese.
It would need to. I'd need to put Portuguese in here and then change.
No,
And
I'm
then-
saying like, what will it do with the words when if he
Oh.
says in English mode?
Nothing.
Olá, eu sou o Pedro.
You're so.
Nope.
It tries. It tries.
That,
It tries.
It tries.
can it's taught to?
I didn't realize I am Pedro sounds like I am beautiful.
I didn't realize that either.
Tome gemakbuchlis Lydia.
Democratic Lydia.
Doesn't do Irish.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Necesito nuevos pantalones para mi ornitorrinco.
It certainly doesn't do Spanish.
No, it doesn't do that one very well either.
Sure didn't. Yeah, I would have to set it up so that it would do multilingual. I don't even know if it does. I think it only does one language at a time. Interesting though. So we're just about at time. Does anybody have anything else?
Well, we seem to have covered all the important stuff just now.
Well, we did. Closed captioning software is very important. And how much fun it can be during a meeting. Well, I hope you all will join us again next week.
I got one more thing.
Oh, go ahead.
What do you say to two snails that are fighting? Nothing. You just let them slug it out.
Oh,
That's your best one yet.
That
And
was-
Bar is very low.
That's why I keep the bar low there, Gareth. So that I can continually improve.
Nowhere to go but up.
Nowhere to go but up. So please join us next week. Do fill out the form for the retrospective. I hope everyone will join us next week for that. And if you can't, please still fill out the form. I'd love to hear from you. If you have anything else, please find me at sage@saltstack.com or any of us at core@saltstack.com. Thank you and happy Thursday.